Now, back to more of Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theater. And your host, Lisa Condit.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks again for listening on this beautiful wintry morning. I am on the phone now with Tricia Laursen. Tricia is one of our great partners with 1540. She's the executive director of this fabulous organization, and we are working together on Cirkopolis, Cirque Eloize, generously sponsored by Southbridge Savings Bank. Welcome, Tricia.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Well, we love working with you, and we love what your organization is doing. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about 1540?
Sure, happy to. So 1540 Connection is really starting a new conversation about cancer. And it starts with the question, would you recognize a cancer symptom? We were founded out of the fact that cancer survival rates for 15 to 40-year-olds have barely improved since 1975.
Wow.
And, yeah, isn't that incredible?
Yes.
So when they studied the problem, and this is when the Livestrong Foundation collaborated with NIH, which is the National Institutes of Health, they found that one of the primary culprits in the problem is delayed diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there's a lot of reasons diagnosis is delayed, but one of the big ones is because people don't really have a frame of reference for what a cancer symptom can look or feel like. So we're out talking to people about that and also talking about ways to advocate for yourself. Say, if you're a young adult and your doctor's not taking your concerns seriously, or your instincts, that inner voice is telling you something about this is different this time, I haven't felt like this before. And really, we like to say we're empowering people to take responsibility for their health so that delayed diagnosis doesn't create a problem for them.
You know, I'm still stuck on the fact that the survival rates haven't improved since the 1970s. It's so amazing to me. I was talking with my daughter, she's 14, just the other night, and we were talking about things she was thankful for, and she listed medical advances as one of those things. And to think that really, truly, if you just pay attention to your body and you trust that inner voice, you know, one of the themes that we were talking about when we were talking about how do we really get your message out with this show, and we'll talk about the show in a little bit too, was really be entertained and be empowered. But boy, early diagnosis, so
right.
important. 15 years old. What are the 15-year-olds finding or not finding?
Well, you know, so first let's talk a little bit about what a cancer symptom most typically is, right? It's not usually something that sends you to the emergency room, right? When you think about your friends or family members that have had cancer, you're usually not diagnosed in the emergency room unless it's an advanced case, right?
Right.
So how do you first notice cancer? And it's typically a subtle but persistent change in your health. So if something about your normal health changes, and 2 weeks later you're not back to your normal yet, that's the time to take action and get checked. But those are symptoms you can minimize, you know?
Oh, I'm tired. I've been working really hard lately. I haven't been getting great sleep. Or, oh, I'm gaining weight because I'm not taking care of myself. But really, you raised such a great point. The other thing is, it seems, I actually have a sister who passed away before she was 40 of cancer. And I remember that when she had found the lump in her breast, it was, already at stage 3. And so it's that awareness. And, I think that most women in their 20s and 30s are not really thinking about breast cancer, right?
Right. But yet the incidence in younger women is rising. So this year in the United States, there'll be 80,000 15 to 40-year-olds diagnosed with cancer. So you compare that to pediatric cancer patients, so 14 and under, and there'll be 10,000 diagnosed. We all seem to know that young kids get cancer. You see the billboards, you see the images, but teenagers and young parents, there's almost this feeling that it doesn't hit this age group, when in fact it does, and the incidence has been rising for a number of years now.
Well, I have all sorts of theories on why and how, but I'm not a medical professional, so I will not bore everybody with my thoughts of organic food and non-growth hormones and all of that great stuff. But, what I love about your organization is it's turning this very serious topic into a very positive one. Empowerment, experience, education, empowerment. Those are those ways that we can tie what we're doing at the Hanover Theater and Performing Arts with getting the message out there. And the show that we are partnering on, Cirque, Eloize, Cirkopolis, it's so interesting because, first of all, it's a family-friendly show, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
But the theme of the show is the dark oppression of industrialism on the individual. Well, that sounds like it's a stretch, but when you really think about it, we talked a little bit about, the 6 steps to empowerment?
Yeah, well, it's 6 obstacles that people need to overcome. Right,
yeah.
Right.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. It's, feeling invincible, like it can't happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not having a frame of reference for what a symptom can look or feel like. It's about self-advocacy and listening to your inner voice, calling, making those appointments, and if your doctor's not taking you seriously, having the wherewithal or the confidence to maybe get a second opinion. Those are the things that really people, young adults have trouble with. A physician in their minds is an authority figure. And we hear often from, we have a Young Adult Speakers Bureau. These are young adult cancer survivors who share their stories. And they often say, this doctor went to medical school and had all this training. Of course he or she knew more about me than I did or about my body. When in fact, nobody knows how you feel better than you.
Right.
So it's the ability to use your voice.
Right.
To take action, right? Your voice matters in your healthcare.
Right. Just like your voice matters in fighting the oppressive industrial forces.
You've got it.
And on a really super light note, this show is so fun with the acrobats and the dancing, and it's just this visual spectacular. It's going to be phenomenal. And you and I, we've been talking about different ways that we can really add to the experience for people who are coming to the show. And we haven't worked out all the details, so we're not going to spill all of the beans. But we really want it to be fun and interactive for people to bring their families so that the conversation can really start about that empowerment, right?
Right.
And so there's an educational piece that goes along with that, but it has to be a very fun experience for everybody. And we are definitely working on some very fun options for people. Yeah. But talk to us a little bit about that, that education, empowerment, and maybe some of the people that you've had the pleasure of working with and some of the stories that we were talking about the other day.
Yeah, so we use young adult cancer survivors, as I said, to help us illustrate what it is we're talking about. So when I say to you, if your normal health changes and it persists for 2 weeks, call your doctor and find out what the cause is. That sounds great, but what does that really mean?
Right.
And this is where the young adult cancer survivors come in, and it's just a phenomenal group of people. So brave in sharing these stories because these battles aren't always easy ones. So for instance, I think of a young woman who was gorgeous. She had a mole on her stomach that was itchy. So she pointed out to her physician, and her physician thought it didn't look bad, and she's young, and it was probably fine. But this young woman said, there's something about it. It was just bugging me. And then the physician said, you know what? We can take it off, but there's going to be some scarring. And this is a girl that probably looks great in a bikini and a bathing suit.
A lucky duck. Just wait until she has kids.
Exactly. It's coming. So, you ask audiences, well, what would you do if you were her? And I think a lot of people would have avoided a surgery, right?
Right.
But she listened. Something about her inner voice said, no, there's something different about this. I don't like it. And my radar is going up. I want to get it removed. And she did, and it was a stage 2 melanoma. So
wow.
a melanoma is an aggressive skin cancer. So the fact that she probably saved her life by trusting her instincts.
And how big, do you remember or do you know how big was the mole that we're talking about on her stomach?
I don't remember. It was fairly small. And like I said, it was itchy more than it had some other more typical symptoms of melanoma. But she said it was itchy all the time. And, that being an itchy mole is a symptom of melanoma, too. It doesn't mean you have melanoma, but it should be checked.
Wow. You know, I have a friend who just loves the sun, and she goes for her annual check, and she said that, you know, you really have to get over the embarrassment that basically you're going to be standing naked in front of somebody who's going to literally take a magnifying glass and look at every freckle and every mole on your entire body. Right?
That's right. You know what? And, you know, is it worse than, you know, the treatment for cancer? You know, in early stage skin cancer, the cure rates are well into the 90%.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But when you get to a late stage cancer, it's very different.
Right.
So the sooner you take care of it, the better off you're going to be.
And when you say aggressive, melanoma is an aggressive form of cancer, what do you mean by that?
Spreads quickly.
Spreads quickly to other parts of your body, perhaps, right?
And then it's think of cancer like a child almost. You know, if you want to correct behavior in a toddler, it's easier than correcting behavior in a teenager, right?
Right. Don't I know
in
it?
In theory, anyways. I don't know. when you only have toddlers, you might doubt that statement. But cancer is kind of the same way. You know, an early cancer is much easier to treat and to cure than a more advanced and older cancer.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting. When I was in college way back, we won't say when, I did take a course, microbiology of cancer and AIDS, and I found it completely fascinating. And at that point, the definition that I learned of cancer was an uncontrolled growth of cells, basically.
That's right.
And that we all have cancer cells in our bodies every moment of every day, you know, but it's our body's ability to remain healthy and fight off that uncontrolled growth that keeps it from developing.
Right. Your typical healthy cells die at some point, right?
Right.
And it's when they don't die that they take over other things.
Right. Okay. We need to take a short break, Tricia, so everybody stay tuned. We're going to continue the conversation right after this quick break on Behind the Scenes here on AM 830 WCRN.
Now, back to more of Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theater and your host, Lisa Condon.
Hello, everybody, and thanks again for listening as we continue our conversation here with Tricia Laursen. Tricia is the Executive Director of 1540 Connection, and we are partnering to promote empowerment, that great theme, through our show, Cirque, Eloize, Cirkopolis. Tricia, at the break, we were just talking a little bit about, again, those 6 obstacles that we had touched on before. And you have some really great stories, and we're going to have some great interactive activities to really get people to think about this in a fun way so that kids and families really feel great and they come. They're going to experience great theater, they're going to receive a little education, and they're going to leave feeling empowered, both by the story of Cirkopolis and also through what we're doing with you. So one of those first obstacles we had talked about a little bit was awareness, right? Was there anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, I mean, you know, I can always tell you stories about people who have lived it. You know, when you think about awareness, a common symptom, for instance, of a leukemia or a lymphoma, which is a blood cancer, is feeling really exhausted, much more so than is normal for you. And people like that who have gone through this when they're, you know, you're a young adult and all of a sudden you're tired, but you're going to school, you're working a part-time job, and of course you have a great social life, right? So symptoms like that are easy to minimize away.
Yeah.
So I can't understate the importance of just being aware of what's normal for you and recognizing that if something changes and you almost develop a new normal, it's time to get it checked out because, you know, once you realize that those symptoms are important, you have a frame of reference, then it's easier to act. But a lot of people don't have that frame of reference, and so you might drink more coffee or these days Red Bull or something like that. But, you put them in the back of your mind, and we just want you to know that, listen, take action. It doesn't mean you have cancer, by the way.
Right.
If you experience a symptom like that, it could be that you're just exhausted, or it could be you have cancer or diabetes or heart disease or a whole host of things. But
well, and the truth is, if you're really that exhausted, boy, that's your body's wake-up call to pay attention because, remember, it's your ability to fight off those cancer cells, too, that's going to be able to keep you healthy. So You always
right.
have to listen to yourself. And the second
right.
one that we were talking about was feeling invincible, which certainly in this age group has got to be a major concern.
Yeah, we go to schools and universities. It's not uncommon for us to hear from, especially the younger high school students, I didn't think anybody my age could get cancer.
Yeah.
But they do. I'm thinking even of a young student who found she was experiencing weird symptoms, almost allergy-like symptoms and cold symptoms combined, and they were just persisting and not going away. And one day she was at the copier at school, and there was somebody had photocopied a piece of paper on, I believe it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it had a list of symptoms. She read them. She said, "This is what I have." She brought it home. Her mom called the doctor. The doctor said, "No, I doubt it," but she was seen anyways, and sure enough, that's what she had.
Wow. Well,
Yep.
at least she ignored that next obstacle, which, as you mentioned before, was minimizing the symptoms.
Right. Yep. Strong. That's a confident young woman that did that.
Yeah, I would say.
So, and that's what we want: more empowerment, more confident young men and women to do just what she did.
Right. And, I think that as a society, a lot, we are trained to, toughen up, suck it up. You can do it.
Yeah, that's right. Sports.
Right.
Especially if you play sports, right?
Right.
Yeah, get through it.
Even a lot of people that start out in the workforce, there's definitely that mentality that you have just got to go and work, which of course you do. But, working and being exhausted, it's easy to start losing perspective of what could be a major concern, right? And like you said, the new normal, obviously you might need to adjust the new normal if it's creating such a issue for you, right?
Yeah. If you don't have your health, how well can you accomplish your goals without your health, right?
It's gone.
Right.
And so then you had mentioned something about medical professionals.
Yeah, so medical professionals, when a young adult with cancer walks through the door, he or she tends to look healthier than, say, an older adult right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And, medical professionals tend to be hesitant to consider a cancer diagnosis in young adults when they present with vague symptoms. So it's even more important for this group to advocate for themselves. I'm thinking of one very courageous young woman who speaks for us often. She's amazing. Her name's Stephanie. And she had thyroid problems most of her teenage years and into her 20s. And she was in her mid-20s, and she said, they had switched my medication. She had even switched doctors. She had switched dosages. But she found that she was tired all the time. She was putting on weight and couldn't explain it. And she said, now my skin was flaking off.
Oh, boy.
So she did a little research online herself and went to her next doctor's appointment and said to her physician, something else is wrong with me. I'm not leaving until we figure out what it is. So the doctor sat down and looked at her and said, face it, Stephanie, you're overweight and lazy and you need to exercise more. Now picture yourself, a young woman in your 20s. What do you do?
First of all, I think I'd start crying.
Right. Your image is everything, right? The last thing you want to be when you're in your 20s is overweight and lazy. But she knew she wasn't. She knew that wasn't her, and that she wasn't acting in that way. So she went out to the medical assistant and said, I'll pick my medical records up in the morning. And the assistant tried to explain that the doctor was just having a bad day and it'll be better next time. And she said, no, I'll pick my records up in the morning.
Good for her.
And she did. And 2 weeks later, with a new doctor, she was diagnosed with stage 4 thyroid cancer.
Stage 4 thyroid cancer.
Now, luckily, stage 4 thyroid cancer is curable, and she is a survivor.
Wow.
Had that been a different kind of cancer,
right,
the outcome likely would have been very different.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, but, she learned her lesson. She spoke up. She trusted her instincts. Another guy that speaks for us, he actually had, in high school, he had severe stomach pains. And he ignored them. He was 14, going on 15. Didn't want to be sick. Like you said, you're strong. You can get over it. He was powering through it. Till one day he tries to stand up in class, and he can't. He is in so much pain, he can't even straighten up. Mm-hmm. So he It's a quick ride to the hospital. He spends Christmas in the hospital. He lost a lot of his intestines during a surgery, and he was diagnosed with colitis.
Oh, God.
So, the lesson learned. Now, the same young guy, he's 18. He's a senior in high school, wears glasses, and he starts having double vision and headaches.
Oh, no.
Right. But, you know, if you were 18 and you wore glasses, you had double vision and headaches, what would you do?
I think I need a new prescription.
Yeah. So would you act quickly? Would you take your time? What would you do, you know?
Right.
He learned the lesson from when he was a freshman, and he acted very quickly. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and today he's about a 20-year brain cancer survivor.
Awesome.
Yeah, but, you know, we often say that his previous experience saved his life because he knew to act quickly. But that's the message we're trying to get across is, you know, listen to yourself, listen to that inner voice, and act.
Right. Well, and I think the next one is especially important, and it's one that I think that a lot of people have an issue with, and that is not being completely honest about your symptoms because you might be embarrassed.
Oh, this is a tough one, right? Who doesn't feel
Right.
this one?
Right.
It's not like you're in a power position when you're having a physical or something with the Johnny on, and you know, we have a young colon cancer survivor who, in hindsight, is saying, you know what some of my early symptoms were? I was farting all the time.
Oh.
And he blamed it on his diet. He was working out. He had the six-pack, eating vegetables more than anything else, and energy bars, and he had all the excuses in the world. And so he didn't want to tell his physician about this stuff.
Right.
Until we didn't, and this stuff delayed his diagnosis. So he ended up with a stage 4 colon cancer and is extraordinarily lucky. He's a 3-year survivor now.
Wow.
But only 6% survives stage 4.
Wow.
The way he was diagnosed, you know. So
and you know
we're glad to have him.
You know what? Colon cancer in particular is one of the cancers that if you really do act quickly, okay, it is extraordinarily embarrassing if you're embarrassed about your bodily functions, but it's extremely curable, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And when you think about these symptoms, when you're talking one-on-one with your doctor, yeah, it's embarrassing. But let me tell you, you're not the first one to experience them.
No.
And your doctor's heard it before.
Right.
Right? So if you can, even if you make a list of your symptoms, put it in your phone and bring them with you. And then you can just read the list if you have to. But pick a method that works with you or for you so that you can get through that in the doctor's office. That way, you know what, those kind of things, too, help you from forgetting if you get nervous.
Right. Well, and then the last one that we had talked about before was being intimidated.
Yeah, this is Stephanie the perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
She overcame it. And, you know, and the young woman I told you about with the melanoma, luckily she had the confidence to have kind of this talk with her doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she decided not to take the doctor's advice and, you know, and get the mole removed, and thank God she did.
Exactly.
So, you know, your physician is really your healthcare advisor, and an important advisor. But your thoughts and being able to communicate what you're feeling are important too. So don't forget to give yourself credit for that.
Well, absolutely. So I want everybody to remember what Tricia and I have talked about and tell your friends and family, check out this show, Cirque, Eloize, Cirkopolis, because you know what? These obstacles are the same obstacles that are addressed in the show, but in a different context. Go to our website, thehanovertheater.org. Stay tuned for more really fun details as we unveil what we're going to do for our interactive activities. And we'll see you all at the theater. Tricia, thank you so much and have a great day.
You're welcome.